Oh my fucking goth. There's a huge ass sexy Joker tranny land. It's a fucking Joker. It's a Joker tranny. Look at it. Yes. Piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy. That's what Mooney calls them when we fight. Yeah, when we find these sexy trannies on the beach, we're like, ooh, piece of candy. Yeah, no, and it's not like that one episode of The Simpsons or whatever the fuck it was. Yeah, like they're not, they lure what's their face into a box, a box. You'll never watch that episode of The Simpsons in the same way again. Yeah, they tries to lure them into a box. A box. It's a slang term for a vagina. Yeah. And Minnie doesn't have anything against vaginas particularly, but we're having difficulty with these vaginas that at these agencies for sexual assault and rape that say that, oh, well, it's impossible for you to be. They got one excuse after another. They'll tell you, oh, well, it's impossible for you to be raped, Trini. You have to be born with a vagina to be raped. And they don't even care if you're a vagina that identifies as a penis. They say that those can be raped, but not penises that identify as vaginas. They don't even want to acknowledge that. Yes, discrimination. And so they send us from one to another, and then we get to one. Yes, Minnie goes from one place to another trying to have some kind of acknowledgement that the pigs are involved in it and saying, he didn't do that. Yes, we don't use pronouns when we go to the pigs and describe, tell them about who did it. We just says, Craig Campbell does this. And we have to specify because there's lots of Craig Campbells. So we have to say Craig Campbell of Soylent Greenfield 45123. Yes, we don't want others to think that, it's that Craig Campbell that lives over there in our neighborhood. Let's get him. No, we have to say Craig Campbell, Soylent Greenfield, 45123. Yang, yang, yang. So that's how we got to differentiate. That's a pretty one. What is this? It's not a tranny, though. It's just a pretty little red stone. But, we go to these agencies for sexual assault, and they're supposedly against it, but they say, oh, well, your rape isn't fresh enough, tranny. We got this law that says that your rape has to, be counted within a year or 2 years or some shit. And we're like, yeah, but we've been going around to all these different agencies dealing with this discrimination. They're like, oh, but you got to get to us before your rape gets stale. If your rape gets stale, if you have a stale rape, we're not going to acknowledge that, they say. And all that is another way for them to discriminate and say, yeah, try to convince us, well, there's no help for you here, penis. Go over to the church. Oh, look, there's a tranny. There's a tranny right there. Ding, ding, it. There's a little tranny. That's a tranny. Just to show you, that we're not planting these damn things like they do in some videos. Yes, it's obvious, some of these videos, where they find gold and other shit, they're totally planting. Oh, there's another one. They're totally planting that shit. Yeah, they're planting. They're, planters peanuts or some shit, they chuck Dickens on children's playgrounds, they're chucking Dickens. So, throw a little condom on a children's playground and so you can all get privately rich on a piece of paper while a little baby has a public drink. But y'all demand privacy while you eat brains and pussy and blood. Drink blood, yeah, they drink blood in private, they eat brains. They're eating pussies and sucking dicks. And the hilarious part is they all call themselves human. And they go to church and say Jabez forgives them for that, and so they can go back to being human. It was like, no, you're Mooney's a little bit vampire, say, because we have to just drink a blood out of a condom on a playground when we're 3. But it's totally cool, though, because, it's like Chuck Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and all that jizz. Yeah, that's another thing, from the jizz era. They call it jazz because they weren't allowed to say jizz. So that's why they call it jazz. Mooney's a jizz baby. But anyways, don't want these videos to get too long.